Alright, so today I figured I'd do something I haven't done before. The other day I released a original jam track, which you can find by clicking the pop-up just now. So today what we're going to do is write a solo for that jam track, but we're going to do it in just 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Mostly because it's the maximum amount of time that my camera can record for before it shuts off automatically, but also because I think it's just a nice rounded number. To just quickly establish a few different concepts and techniques that we've looked at on the channel to include in the solo, with all the relevant videos being linked below if you want to check them out, we're going to try and include using expanded scale positions, arpeggios, intervals, permutations, and double stops and bends. And overall, we're going to try and keep in mind making the solo more melodic and memorable, developing the overall story of the solo, so keeping it interesting throughout, and just making sure that it fits with the backing track being one part of a whole instead of kind of feeling like I've just sort of stuck it on top. And when it comes to writing music and music in general, I'm quite a visual person. It helps me to be able to see everything in front of me before I sit down to start working. So what I've done is I've just written down the details of the jam track. So I've got the key signature, which is C major, the chord changes, C major 7, F major 7, and E minor 7. And then I've also written down the relevant modes, so Ionian, Lydian, and Phrygian. And that just helps me kind of visualize everything and give me a sense of what I can use and what I can kind of jump between and whatnot. I've also already taken some time to sit and listen to the backing tracks to just sort of like integrate it, become more familiar with it, and think of a couple of different ways that I can sort of approach the solo and what it is that I want to specifically add to the overall track. But, alright, so with that all established, let's reset the camera, start the timer, and get into it. Okay, so to start, I'm just going to listen to the first sections of the backing track and just kind of see which note I want to begin with to kick things off, which is usually going to be the third. I always tend to aim for the third when I start the solo. And for the solo this time, I think I'm going for a bit more of a quiet kind of beginning. Okay, so that's just building off the thirds and a couple of the kind of chord tones, as well as sort of following the underlying melody. So I think that's quite a good opening. It's quite soft, it kind of has the vibe that I want, and I think it follows and fits the backing track quite well. So if that's what we're starting with, then the next passage will probably have to build on that. That was interesting, kind of going a little bit higher, but it doesn't feel like it belongs to the first passage that we kind of began with, so let's see if we can do something better than that. Okay, I like that because it adds a little bit more, so that arpeggio there, the double stop or the interval, follows that same pattern, but adds it a little, a little more spice. It gives it a little bit more flavor while still kind of following the same idea. And then there's that sort of arpeggic run of the E minor, which I think is good because it sounds kind of pentatonic-y, but also not, because it follows that, it hits that, kind of follows the chord tone, so it feels a little bit more harmonic. So we finished that and we were a little bit up. So when we're up, I think we kind of need to dig in now, because we've had the softer sections, and now it's time, I think, to kind of kick it up a gear and sort of step things up. So I think that C, that upper C up here, I think that's a good note to kind of land on to sort of kick things into the higher section. So if we went for the C and hit that third, the higher E, I think that's good because it kind of opens the door to that sort of, more ballsy sort of section, and also it's a good kind of interval, like. Okay, I like that, ending that phrase there with the major 7 arpeggio. Kind of like that sort of static note, you know, like there's a lot that you can do for a single note if you kind of stay, you know, you can hold it, you can bend up to it, bit of vibrato, fast pick it. So I think after that pedal note, the C, because it's quite intense, you know, you're sort of digging in a bit, and we've also been up the higher sections of the neck for quite a while. I think we need to back off a bit there. So I think we need to pull off and sort of work our way back down, because we've only got 4 bars left. So I think we spend 2 bars kind of collecting ourselves down the lower end before working back up in some sort of pattern for the big finish, because I want to finish strong, because we started gentle. So, you know, we're kind of like bookending it with a soft opening, big finish, that sort of thing. So I think maybe for when we drop back down, that could be the return to the motif that we started with. So the kind of following the thirds of the 2 chords. So we can return to that, but sort of vary it a little bit before working our way back up. Okay, so for that section there, I guess kind of for the over the E minor chord, just something simple or something sort of building before using the compound fifth sort of interval run that we discussed in another video, so, which I think is a good way of sort of building up to something. And then when we're up there, that's when it goes back to the F major 7. I guess that is the 3rd. And then because it transitions into the C after that, you can end on the 5th of the F and then sort of bend up to the 5th of this, so the C, the root of the C, and then hit that high G, which is the 5th of the C major 7. So like, and then that's our sort of big powerful ending. So I'll run it, just a couple of ideas over it, and see how that sounds. And my camera has just gone off, and my timer is about to go off. Alright, so I'll spend a little bit more time just kind of bringing that all together and making it a little more cohesive, kind of smoothing it out a little bit to get it under my fingers. I'm not going to add anything, I'm not going to keep writing, but otherwise this is the solo that we just wrote in 25 minutes. for a couple of quick thoughts on the solo, I've just sat down to it and I've listened to it again, and I've kind of made a couple of notes on the different points versus the sort of criteria that we established at the beginning. So I like the sort of following melody and the overall softer vibe of the quieter parts, but it feels maybe a little bit more like a rhythm guitar part than necessarily a lead. I like it when it kicks up a gear and it goes into the higher sections. That's definitely the sort of standout to me. So the pedal C moment for me maybe goes a little bit too long, but I do kind of like that sort of building tension for when it like pulls off and then drops back down to the quieter part. I think that sort of works quite effectively for dynamics. I do really like the run towards the end, moving up from the E to the F to the G, but that may be because I'm using a new technique, which is the ascending sort of compound fifth technique, but I still like it. I think it sounds interesting and it's definitely different to anything else in the solo. And speaking of techniques, I did manage to include the majority of the ones that we established at the beginning, except for permutations. It just sort of slipped through, so I guess I'll do better next time. For the overall memorable nature of the solo, I think the strongest section is probably the higher C section with the double stops and the arpeggios. I feel like maybe that's the standout of the overall solo. Whereas the quieter sections are less memorable because of what we discussed before, with them feeling more like a rhythm guitar part. But the thing is that they do fit with the overall track. They do sit quite nicely in the overall idea, so that's something. But all in all, I think that the solo is quite a solid attempt, especially for it being written in only 25 minutes. And I feel like if you were to sit down with it and spend a little bit more time, you could use it as a stepping off point, a sort of starting point for developing it into a much more nuanced solo. And maybe that's the point of all of this, which is that in 25 minutes, you can very easily establish a very effective overall structure for a solo idea, which you can then spend time polishing and developing into something that's more effective. But that about does it for today, guys. As always, I hope that there was something in this video that was useful for you. I'm hoping that by showing you my process and my step-by-step approach to writing a solo, you might come across something that you're able to use yourself. And my process is far from perfect, as is my soloing, but there might be something in what I do that you're able to learn from and integrate into your own process as well. And in general, this is actually a very good technique for if you're looking to develop your solo and your lead line writing abilities. So take the same approach, find or write yourself a backing track, establish a criteria of what you want to include, limit yourself to a time, and just see what you come up with. And let me know if there was something in this video that was useful for you, if you have any thoughts, or even if you just have something you want to share. Drop a comment below, whatever you like, because I genuinely would love to hear from you. But apart from that, I will just take this opportunity to say thanks for watching. Thanks for doing all the usual business to help support my channel and my video. It really does mean a lot. And yeah, just thanks for sticking around, and I will see you guys in a bit.